The Gorge is a film that came out strictly to Apple TV, and I know it came out a while ago. I just got my Apple TV subscription renewed, and so I just had a chance to watch it over the weekend. So, how did I feel about it? Well, I watched the trailer and I thought, oh, this looks like an exciting film that I want to see. And it was, I had to admit. When I was watching it, I was pretty well engaged. But then I thought about it after it was over, and there's a lot of things that really fall apart in this film. And that's fine. I think a lot of films, they aren't airtight, and then it's fun how films can make you get in the moment, and then suddenly you're at the end of them and you think, whoa, wait, what about this? What about this? What about this? And it doesn't look like this was a film that wanted to make a sequel to it, and I hope that they don't make a sequel to this film because I think it's a standalone story. Anyway, so this was one of those films that just starts out where the lighting here is always poor in this world, and it's deliberately that way. So it starts out showing just these long establishing shots with music like to set up this kind of mysterious and horrifying atmosphere. And if you think that this is some sort of I don't know, if you look at the trailer, you think it might be some sort of action movie, adventure movie, but it's really more of a romance horror movie. And it's taking a lot of genres and kind of sprinkling them in there, and then it's mixing them up. And in some ways, it's actually a good mix. I actually thought okay, this film is kind of going insane on us, and that's fine. I actually kind of like films that kind of do this, that kind of ride off the rails, and sometimes you're on the ride and you're going woo! But sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. So, yeah, there's two main characters of this, and I don't know the character names, but one of them's played by Miles Teller. You might have seen in other movies, I think he was Reed Richards in that really bad Fantastic Four movie. And so he was apparently this sniper who's really good at his job, and they hire him for this job, which is watching over this gorge. And this gorge is some place that is not really told where it is. I think the characters have speculated it's somewhere in the Yukon or somewhere in the Northwest, somewhere like that. But essentially, it's this giant pit that does seem to have a concrete outline around it, but apparently stuff comes out of the gorge, and there's these two watchtowers over it. And all along the side of this gorge are automated bombs and automated guns that the people who are manning those control towers have to reload and set up every once in a while, because stuff comes out of the gorge that is these kind of superhuman, kind of undead type zombie type Groot things that are just not really that the government does not tell them about this. Basically, what happens is Miles Teller is dropped off, and he's told all this by the guy he's replacing. And then we actually see a helicopter pick up this guy, and then the guy in the helicopter just goes, "Thank you for service," and then he shoots the guy and then just drops him off, and then cuts his line that he's on. And so I'm going well, that sucks. So obviously, and you're thinking oh, that's going to be the fate of Miles Teller on here. Now remember I said there's two control towers? One of them is manned or womaned by Anya Taylor-Joy, who I swear is in everything these days. This is one of those actresses that becomes the newest it girl, and then they're in everything, and everybody hypes them up. In the case of Anya Taylor-Joy, I think she's a pretty good actress. I think she's been in a lot of good stuff, but she's been in a lot of bad stuff too, and that just sort of happens. So here's the thing. This is where the film becomes a romance. Because there's scenes where they are where they're bored and they're starting to hold up signs saying hi, how are you doing? And then they start to just chat that way. And then eventually they start falling for each other. And by the way, they play chess, so I don't know if that's supposed to be some sort of reference to Anya Taylor-Joy's big breakout role of the Queen's Gambit, but that happens. Thought I'd just mention that. So at one point in time, I think Miles Teller just launches a rope over this gorge, and then he uses a zip line to get to her, and then they have an actual romance, or they can, touch and stuff like that, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then, unfortunately, as he's trying to get back over, the line snaps, and he falls into the gorge. That's what happens. Now, from here, this film becomes a horror movie where they get into the gorge and it becomes something like, I don't know, say the Upside Down on Stranger Things, or Silent Hill, or just a really icky place. And you kind of wonder, like, at no point in time, this is the kind of thing, like, I mean, I feel like a lot of films like this try and do stuff like this, where they introduce some element of some supernatural kind of horror element, and the only thing explanation they have is like, oh, the government's going to just cover it up. And that apparently is what has happened. Because there is an explanation for this place, and I am going to get into some spoilers here. So, as it turns out, they kind of do a little search. Okay, first of all, something really dumb happens, because remember how I said he falls in the gorge? Well, Anya Taylor-Joy's character just grabs some stuff off the shelf and then jumps in after him. And she lands in this one spot down there. I guess she used, actually I don't even remember how she, oh yeah, she has a parachute or something like that. Well, apparently when she landed, she dropped the auto retriever, or auto ascender. That's what they said. This would allow them to, say, climb the rope they would need to get back to, the gorge spot, or the watchtower that he was at, that Miles Teller was at. So while they're in this thing, they're meeting up with these strange zombies, and they look like they're dressed like cavalry troops, and they're on horseback. When they kind of have this sort of kind of plant look to them. They almost look like Last of Us zombies, kind of, but instead of fungal, they're more weeds. I guess that's from lack of a better term. I think I described them as Groot creatures, and honestly, I kept thinking Groot whenever I saw them. It just sort of happened. And they get to this place and they find this lab where they discover that apparently this was some sort of chemical experiment that they were working with during World War II. While Oppenheimer was working on the atomic bomb, they were thinking like, hey, why don't we just chemical bomb this place? And then the experiment went out of control. And here's the thing. There was a newer operation that apparently came in there to investigate this. And they even had a bomb there that was about ready, that they rigged to pretty much blow up the entire gorge. And but I guess in the end they sort of, I don't know, flooded the gorge with concrete and then set up automated gun towers. I kept wondering, like, this is one of those things where I'm going like, okay, the timeline of this doesn't make any sense. I mean, assuming that the experiments set apart this and all these people are down there and occasionally they climb up in the gorge, why aren't they always climbing up to get out of the gorge? And why didn't they climb up out of the gorge earlier when there weren't gun turrets there? It makes no sense. Also, these guys have a bomb there, and I'm going to get to this huge plot hole in a second. But first, I want to explain how Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy got out of this gorge. They find a Jeep that for some reason still operates. Don't ask me how. I mean, I wouldn't think that would happen. I feel like if you can't just leave a Jeep around for like 3 years and insert the key, and even if you have gas in there, it won't start. That is how cars work. But they drive this Jeep and they find the other end of Miles Taylor's line. And so they decide, we'll just use the winch as an auto ascender. So this Jeep is going up the gorge with them on it, and then there's zombies climbing up after them. And at one point in time, Jeeps usually have a propane tank in back, so at one point in time to get rid of them, Miles Teller, like, one of the characters goes, the propane! All I could think of is like, I don't know, Hank Hill going like, oh! And he punches the propane tank. The propane drops on these guys, and of course he sets it on fire with a handy-dandy flare. So at this point in time, these characters are realizing that things are going to get out of hand in that gorge. Something's going to happen. Oh yeah, that's actually right. Miles Teller contacts the base and says, like, what's going to happen? And they say, kill Anya Taylor-Joy's character. And he's like going like, nah, I ain't doing that. So what they decide to do is use the bombs they have to blow up all the guns on the side. And this is while the heads are visiting, played by Sigourney Weaver for some reason. And so this is how the movie ends. They blow up all the guns, and for some reason, you remember how I said there was a bomb underneath? Well, that bomb destroys the gorge. Why wasn't this done decades ago? It makes no sense. Oh my gosh, but I still love the ride of this film. Turn your brain off and just watch The Gorge, okay? It's on Apple TV now.